Hi folks, it's Andy. Welcome to this week's Kendo Rant. Okay, so here we are for another fantastic week of questions. I've got quite a few for you today. We've got a lot, actually. So we're going to try and whiz through them. All right, so it might be a bit of a quick fire round today. We'll see how we get on. Some great ones. Before we jump to them, though, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. You know, the YouTube magic. The YouTube magic. It's Friday. Now, got a very special task for you. Speaking of YouTube magic, you're going to help me spread the joy of Kendo around the world. You're going to help increase the Kendo population. All you got to do, as I said, you got to like, share, subscribe, and then go down to the comments there and say, wow, what a fantastic Kendo video this is, or something to that effect. Because by doing that, those people out there who are on the periphery, on the edge of beginning their Kendo journey, maybe they're looking at something that's a bit like Kendo, but not nearly as good. And they're surfing YouTube and they're just waiting for the right video to be suggested to them, the right channel that might just get them started and therefore increase the Kendo population. It worked last week, worked the week before. We had 107 people probably start Kendo because of it the week before. Was up to 219 last week, probably starting Kendo. Let's see if we can get over 220 probable starters. Okay, like, share, subscribe, and write in the comments. Use the word Kendo in the comments so that it gets suggested to the right people. Okay? Most importantly, though, after you've done that, don't forget to shop at KendoStar.com. KendoStar is my website that sells the best equipment in the galaxy. Now, of course, I would say that because, as I said, I own the place. You don't need me to say this right now, do you? I don't need to go through this all again, but maybe you're one of the new people that's found this video thanks to one of the legends that commented just before down below what a great Kendo video this is, and you found this video because of an amazing person like that who did it. And you don't know that everybody who's anybody in Kendo shops at KendoStar.com. Now, I'd say that, I know, because I own the place, but everybody agrees. If you look at our reviews, everyone, if you go in your dojo, is probably already shopping there, if they know what they're doing. I know there's all these wannabes popping up left, right, and center thinking that it's easy to run this sort of thing out of your bedroom. Look, Kendo Star's long-standing business now. Proper business with staff, proper team, proper stock, proper understanding of Kendo, proper understanding of what we're doing. We're the best in the business. Now, of course, I'd say that, but like I say, everyone agrees. So get to KendoStar.com, get the best gear, the best service, and keep the channel going. So everyone's a winner. Everyone is a winner. Right, let's get to these questions. Right, okay, this one's not a question, but I thought I'd put it in anyway. It says, on a personal note, I wonder if you could wish my friends for their grade-ins on the 15th and 16th of April. That's tomorrow. In Glasgow. Their names are David and Greg, and we are with the Aberdeen Kendo Club. This is our first grading, so there is a bit of nerves amongst us. We're fans of the Kendo Show and Kendo RANT and buy our equipment from your store. Thank you very much. Well, I wish you all the very best of luck. David, Greg, all of you, I want you to do very well in your grading. I'll be there, actually. I'll be there. My kids are doing a grading as well. If it's your first one, means you're going for IQ, you'll be fine. Just make sure you do Fumikomi and you'll be fine. All right, I'm sure you'll do absolutely brilliant. Okay, so all the best for that. I look forward to seeing you pass on the day. Okay. Okay, question for the show. How can I work on not having horizontal Hasuji for do? I think I'm doing it correctly, but after watching videos of myself, it's clearly horizontal. How can I correct my Hasuji without the awareness to tell if I'm doing it? If you want my honest answer, I'd say don't beat yourself up too much about it. To be honest. Doesn't say anywhere in the sort of rules that it has to be like a specific angle. I know we talk about 45 degrees when we're teaching it, but in reality, 45 degrees is a bit unrealistic anyway. I know of senseis that teach do as the horizontal strike, actually, suiheuchi, but I don't think it should be. It should have a sort of angle to it, shouldn't it? So that you can get the proper strike. And yeah, of course, the Hasuji has to be correct. So you can't hit with the side of the shinai, you know, like even if you swing it sort of horizontally, you have to turn the blade so that you're still hitting with the jimbu, yeah, this side, and not like with the side. Ooh, which way? This way. Yeah, not hitting with this part, of course. But you know, it's just otherwise it's just practice and film yourself and try to concentrate on it when you're doing it. But I wouldn't beat yourself up over it. All right, it's not the be all and end all of door strikes. All right, it's certainly not in the rules. All right, it's not in the rules saying it has to be X degrees. It just says it has to have correct Hasuji. All right, which means that you have to be hitting with the jimbu. Now I'm gonna have a quick look in this book here. Let's see what it says about door strikes and see if it even mentions that. It might do. But again, what we're talking about is like an ideal rather than like an absolute must. So again, it's better not to do the kind of suihei uchi. I think, in my opinion, the fully horizontal strike, probably best not to. But don't beat yourself up over it too much, to be honest. The main thing about do, what makes do ippon is opportunity, okay, and accuracy. Yeah. I'm looking through this book now. There's not a lot here. Let's have it. Where are we? Seme men, seme kote, seme mido. It just says the attack completes the door strike in one following motion. So it doesn't even say in here that it has to be X degrees. I've never heard that. Shimon implying pressure must chew down. Yeah. So I know I've heard people say, oh, it should be 45 degrees. And like I say, I consider that like an ideal, but I don't want you to I don't want you to beat yourself up over it. Focus on hitting a good timing, good opportunity. And then in terms of the blade angle, or not really the blade angle, the swing angle, isn't it? Just try to study it by filming yourself is probably the best way. Okay, next one. This one came to me on Facebook. Short side question, because I know you're quite fit in Japanese. I don't know about that. Whether you might have time and intention. Since too many years, I've had my family name in kanji or katakana on my zekken, but I failed every time. Closest I could get up to know is now. I'm going to apologize if I can't pronounce your name properly, because I don't speak your language. But Blatterspiel, is that the correct way to say it? I don't know, but your Japanese is Bratterspiel. Okay, Bratterspiel. Which sounds like the best translation of it to me. It says to retranslate to German is Blatterspiel, but I don't know. It's like I feel really ignorant, but I don't know what the little dots above the A mean. So sorry about that. So anyway, blatt means leaf in English, and blatter is the plural form of blatt, leaves. So not quite fitting. Besides, my name came from the word blatter. This is not a leaf, but a type that was used for deer hunting. So I'm not sure if, after all, to get it translated without seeming odd, maybe that might be something for your next Japanese lesson to solve. Just thought I'd ask you. Okay, cool. Look, here's my thoughts on this. All right. if you're getting your name put onto a zekken and it's not a Japanese name, or certainly like not an Asian name like a Chinese or Korean name, that can be naturally written in kanji, then I recommend you use katakana. Okay, I recommend you use katakana. This is katakana. Okay, it's impossible to render this name properly, by the way, in kanji, right? But I'll get to that in a minute. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's not really right. Okay, and there's a couple of reasons. First off, right, if you write your name, if we try and stick ateji, that's when you stick like kanji together based off the way they sound when they're read out loud. No one's going to be able to read it, all right? So you're going to be basically anonymous, and that defeats the point of your zekken in the first place. We're supposed to use katakana so that it can be easily read and identified, okay? Now, when you're using katakana, this is katakana, of course. This is like a phonetic writing system. So this is bu, ra, ta, a, sh. This is shi, but when you put the little u there, it goes shu, pi, i, ru, okay? Brata spiru, okay? So that's fine. And that sounds pretty close to me, because you'll never get perfect rendition because Japanese do not use the same phonetic pronunciations as we do in other languages. So it's impossible to get one that sounds exactly like your name. All right, let's take my name as an example. Okay, all right, my name's Fisher, as I expect you know. All right, Fisher. Oops, let me put it back to English first. Fisher, all right, Fisher. No C, Fisher, yeah. Okay, now to write this in Japanese, I have to write it like this, okay? Fu, little E makes it fi. This little tsu is like, it means it's like a double, like a kind of half pause. So it's not Fisher, it's Fisher, okay? Fisher, okay? Then the shi and this little ya means it's not she, it's sha. And this is like this accentuates the final sound. Fisher, all right? This is different to fu, I, she, ya. Okay, it's different to this, right? This just says fuishia, fuishia. All right, so that doesn't sound like Fisher at all. The closest sounding is Fisher, okay? Fisher, okay? It doesn't sound like Fisher. I understand that. It doesn't sound exactly like my surname. It doesn't represent the meaning of my surname in any way whatsoever either. It just says Fisher, okay? But it's the closest I'm ever going to get, okay? This can't really be written in kanji either for ateji, because the closest I could get maybe would be something weird like this would be hisha. Hisha. You could read that as hisha, okay? Day or sun and person. Sun person. But it sounds even less like it, and people would start calling me hisha. It's not hisha, it's fisha, okay? So it's not a good idea, all right? Andy, okay, Andy. My first name, Andy. Okay, this is pretty easy, but again, this can't be written in kanji because there's no kanji that is di. All right, this sound itself is a little bit foreign, di. So there isn't really many Japanese native words that use the word di. All right, the sound di. Sorry. So again, it's not really possible. All right, my full name obviously Andoryu. Yeah, Andrew. Some Japanese people like to stick kanji to your name. So like some of them have done it. What was it? This one and oops. And like this. So this is this and or you, yeah. This can technically be written. And I don't even know if it's, sorry, I'm doing all this off screen. I can see it on mine. Right, okay. That's a bit embarrassing. Anyway, so Fisher is like this, and then Andy is like this, and then Andoryu is like this in katakana, okay? This is what I'm talking about, right? And then some senseis wrote my name like this before and gave me gifts with it written on, which is fine, but I don't use it, right? Because this is Andoryu, okay? Andoryu. But it's not really appropriate. So look, what I'm saying is, in short, stick to katakana and accept that it's never going to be a perfect transliteration of your name, all right? Because it's not possible for Japanese to do that, all right? I can't, you know, and yeah, I don't, like, for example, if you wanted to put this into kanji, I can't think of a kanji that's read with P, okay? P, because again, it's not really a particularly Japanese Japanese sound, okay? It's a bit of a foreign sound, all right? A little bit like the D in Andy, okay? So my advice is stick with katakana and accept that it's not going to be perfect. Okay, next one. Hi, Andy Sensei. I've noticed that many kendo players take their shinai to the right when swinging for a men blow instead of striking in a strictly vertical plane. What's the reason for this, and is there any benefit from it? Example 619 from this. Okay, should we have a look at this? Okay, let's have a look at this then. Let's see. Okay. I think what you mean is this, so it's slightly open here, same here. I think this is the dynamic of this particular strike. And I think that it's a very, very subtle part of the lead up to the strike in terms of that it's kind of like a feint in a way. I think it's something you don't need to think about too much. All right. I think it's something that you don't need to overthink at all. All right. I know it's probably not the answer that you want to hear. But at the end of the day, it's the left hand that's doing the striking. That remains in the center. So I think because I think there's a few reasons for it. I think one is partly to do with the setup of the strike, and also part to do with the way that the arms are relaxed at the moment before the strike makes impact. I don't want you to think about that too much. All right, don't worry about it too much. As you gain more experience, it'll start to the way to strike men will start to become more natural. Okay. Thanks, Andy, for answering my question last week. I'd be grateful to hear a bit more about your stance and how you change it based on what you're doing. We often hear keep a sheet of paper between your heel and the floor. But what do you watch a lot of when you watch a lot of matches? Even the higher ranking dans have their back heel pretty high up. How do you keep your heel during practices, shiai, and competition? What do you feel is the important body mechanic principles to keep in mind when moving forwards versus backwards? I don't think you should keep a sheet of paper between your heel on the floor and the left foot. That is too low. That is definitely too low. I definitely wouldn't say that. All right. So I try to keep my heel maybe a couple of centimeters, left heel a couple of centimeters off the floor, so that I'm able to push myself forward when I launch. I try to keep it consistent on every situation, not just practice shiai. And it's a case of having the correct sort of usage of the left leg as whole, and using my lower body to control my body weight. All right. I think that's the way that I look at it. If we go back to that video we just looked at, actually, can we see it? I wonder. Can we see that? It's just cut out, isn't it? Let's see if I can get a little bit more of the bottom of the framing. Yeah, we'll see if we can. Does that work? Okay, yeah, we can see a bit more there, right? So see when they're in kamae. Can't quite see, can we? Let's see if we can get a better angle. So here you can see there's not like one This is Kiwata Daiki Sensei's extremely accomplished kendoka. You know, there's not just one paper width between his heel and the floor. That's far too little. Okay, so a couple of centimeters, ready to drive your hips forward, is what I'd say. Hello, Fish Sensei. Here's my question. This should be fun. Okay, when high-ranking Japanese kendoka shouts to during shiai, what is that meant to mean? I see it on the World Championships matches, and I personally experienced it when doing keiko with the 7th Dan Sensei visited. I jammed him up on a men's strike due to my inability to separate correctly. Hope this makes sense. Okay, it doesn't mean anything. It's just them vocalizing their hase. Okay, so it could be the kakegoe, or it could be like after the strike. I don't think they're going to say to when they strike, but it's usually just a type of hase. I don't believe it has any specific meaning. It doesn't actually. I know it doesn't. Yeah, that isn't the sort of thing that they're going to vocalize. Sometimes there are some vocalizations you hear from senseis, especially, but not during the shiai. From the senseis, you know, if it's that kind of like to ta 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 ta, yeah, ta 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 ta, this kind of thing, you hear that quite a lot. In the shiai, it's just vocalization, doesn't mean anything. You know, if they're actually saying something, sometimes the ones that are close to words is like yeah, or something like that, like no, like sometimes you hear that one from the senseis, you know, if you make a strike and it's not good enough or something like that. But otherwise, yeah, they tend not to you know, or they might say encouraging stuff like or something like that, or you know, like that sort of thing. But I don't think what you're referring to means anything. I think it's just a sort of individual habit of vocalization for in that moment, if that makes sense. All right, so don't read too much into it. Okay, it's a long one. Wow, this is a long one. Okay, let's get through these. Right, okay, we'll do these one at a time. Hi, Fish Sense. I have a couple of questions I was hoping you'd be able to enlighten me on. You speak a lot about seme and pressuring your opponent to attack, and I've noticed this a lot when doing jigeiko with others better than me. My question is when your opponent is trying to make you attack, what can you do instead? Seems to me like I can only take a step back and then keep stepping back until I eventually attack what they want me to. Well, excuse me, of course that is quite natural when you're practicing somebody who's higher ranked or more experienced than you. That's why they have a higher rank. Okay, that's quite natural. But if it's like a match or a shiai, something like that, then the best thing to do is try to break the timing, or try to attack a different target. Try to read what they're likely to do. Okay, all right, they want you to attack, so maybe they can do the kaishido. All right, okay, they want to do the kaishido. Then it means they're going to have to lift their hands, right? So it'll look like you're going to hit men and pam, Kote, for example. Or make it look like you're going to attack, don't attack, and then attack, or something like that. You know, break the rhythm, use a different pattern of striking, all right? Don't just do it exactly as they want you to, all right? 2, I've heard bits and pieces about Mukai-gashi, but I'm not entirely sure what it is. However, it seems to me that if you maintain your kamae and your opponent runs into it, this counts as Mukai-gashi, and there's kinshi. How do we avoid this happening? I've also noticed with beginners that sometimes when keeping the center, their fists run into the tip of my shinai. Having done this once myself and managing to sprain my thumb, I'm keen to avoid inflicting the same on my partner. So what exactly am I doing wrong? All right, couple of things. Mukai-gashi is not the same as holding the kamae. All right, Mukai-gashi is doing the tsuki against the person who's attacking you, and specifically in the case of what is kinshi means banned, it means particularly from below. Okay, so it's like scooping down from below as they attack, which is very dangerous. All right, it's likely to go underneath the men. It's very borderline because it's different to like debanatsuki. Debanatsuki is a waza, technically. So as they're about to strike, bam, tsuki. It's very, very hard. Don't recommend you try it. Yeah, but just holding the kamae is not Mukai-gashi, all right? Because it's not tsuki. It's not tsuki, right? It's for it to be Mukai-gashi, you've got to do tsuki, right? It's not tsuki, it's just holding the shinai, holding the kamae, okay? About running on the fist of the tip of the shinai, I mean, that's the way they're swinging rather than anything else, but if you really want to avoid it, you could let them hit you or block instead. That's one thing you could do. 3, related to my last questions, I often notice when doing jigeko that some opponents will drop their shinai as I come in, then raise it again to push back against my door and keep the center, thus preventing me from taking ippon. Try to adopt this technique with varying degrees of success, but often find that certain people's doors are quite slippy, and my shinai will go off to the side or over the shoulder instead of maintaining the center as I intended. How do I avoid this happening? Is it even a valid technique to employ in kendo? I don't normally drop my shinai when I do this, simply holding the center instead. So look, if the person doesn't have control of the center and you strike, and then they kind of quickly retake the center, try to retake the center as you're making the strike, depending on their degree of success with that, means that it can or cannot be considered valid or not. You know what I mean? The reason that you're not able to do it properly on their door is because your kamae is not strong enough to do that yet. All right, that'll come with experience, the ability to do that. But you don't really want to do it on the door die anyway. If anything, it would be on the mune or on the ago. You don't want to do it on the door die. It's going to slip off on the door die in any case. All right. But yeah, it's valid. But does it always invalidate the men's strike? No, not always. But at the same time, if that is happening, especially if the other person's senior, they're trying to communicate to you that that isn't really the correct, you didn't strike at an opportune moment. Okay. Number 4, unrelated to the previous question, I've noticed that attitudes towards reigi differ widely depending on the dojo region. When watching Japanese championships, I often notice what seems like lax reigi from the competitors, particularly the losers of shiai, such as lazily swinging their shinai about or letting it drop to the floor. To me, this seems disrespectful, but given this is in Japan, I presume this isn't the case. Linked into this, I've noticed a pattern where I am, whereby the better and younger someone is the worse, the worse their reigi gets. I see. I've noticed particularly at national team player level after jigeko with them, in which I get absolutely wiped. They would do bouncy sonkyo from a distance, so they don't have to walk all the way to me in the middle and barely bow without even looking at me before moving on. I find this really disrespectful. I don't feel like there's anything I can say, as they're clearly better, and I've noticed that they can do better reigi with those who are better. Okay, so look, yeah, in Japan, yeah, there is a massive discrepancy in the attitude towards reigi in lots of places, and it's not just in Japan either. But look, it's never right to be lax about it. Reigi is kendo begins and ends with rei, and it's one of the main and most important aspects of it. And once we allow people to be lax with that, they're straying from what kendo is about. So it's not correct even, and I don't care how good the player is, it doesn't excuse them from being lazy with showing respect to their partner. Losers of shiai swinging their shinai out, letting it drop to the floor is unacceptable, and I'd hope that their senseis would inform them of that. It's not something I've ever seen myself at like a high level Japanese tournament. And if it's something that in my experience, if I saw at a high school level tournament, for example, I don't know of a high school teacher that would let that slide. All right. I don't know of one that would just be okay with that. All right. So yeah, that sort of thing should be pulled upon by their seniors. Is it, do some people not care about it? Yeah, some people don't care about it. So what can you do about it? Is what it is. But should you, if your question is, should you care about it? Yes, you should. All right. Yes, you should care about it. About the people that you've practiced with that showing you disrespectful rei, and what you describe is that it is disrespectful for you to do that. They shouldn't behave like that. It doesn't matter how good they are. It doesn't matter how young or brilliant they are at kendo. If they can't be bothered to do proper rei, then they're not really doing proper kendo. So as you can probably tell, I'm getting quite annoyed by the idea of it. And it's not that I'm perfect with my rei all the time either. There's areas I need to improve, and sometimes I get sloppy. But I try to be strict on myself. And what I don't want to do is give off And I think it's disgraceful to even to somebody who's has lower ability than you to give off an impression that they don't deserve your respect for practicing kendo with you. It's very wrong to do that. So yeah, I definitely disapprove of that. Is there anything you can do about it? No, you can't. There's no point challenging them on it or something like that. It's not worth it. Unless you are in a senior position to they are. If someone did that to me and they were junior to me, it doesn't matter if they battered me. If some 18-year-old kid was absolutely on fire and battered me all over the place and then did that to me, I'm going to pull them up on it. Because you know, they need to be told. But I'm in a slightly different position to a lot of people in that I have a position of authority in which I can do that in most situations. But you know, in the situation you're talking about, if you don't have that, then you just let it go. It's not your problem. You know what I mean? Just like, okay, well, it reflects more on them than it does on you. So don't let it get to you. Is what I'd say. Okay, next one. So for Mengane is the cage on the front of the men. IBB Titanium Pro and IBB SD. What are the pros and cons of these two Mengane? Also, adding extra stuffing into a custom men. Are there any minuses to doing this besides some bulk and weight? Thank you, Sensei. Okay, so this is the Takai Budogu website. Takai Budogu is the manufacturer of the IBB Mengane. And you can see they've got lots of different types. What is an IBB Mengane? It's a Mengane that's got slightly wider monomi. It's just 1 millimeter wider, and also the weight, the center of balance is slightly adjusted so that it feels lighter than it is. It's not a big difference, to be honest, but it's a kind of cute thing. So the ones that we're talking about here is the IBB Pro Titan and the IBB SD Mengane Pro Shield. Okay, fine. Right. So look, the Pro Titan, this one, is a titanium Mengane with this IBB thing. As you've probably seen on Kendo Star, we don't use titanium Mengane all that much at all. They're much heavier than the duralumin counterparts. They're a bit more durable, but not to the extent where it's worth it. They are much heavier, noticeably heavier. And as I say, and you know, I've probably used more Borga sets than most people in the world at this point. And I have used titanium ones. I've used pretty much all the different types of Mengane as well. And I just do not see the benefit of the titanium build Menganes. They're not worth it. In my opinion, they're much more expensive. They're much heavier. I don't rate them, so we don't use them. About the IBB SD. The IBB SD is it's a duralumin Mengane. It's just like the IBB duralumin Mengane. The only difference is it's got this extra joint at the top. It's got this extra joint at the top, which they claim gives it a little bit more durability. I've never seen this come into play. Let's put it that way. I've used these ones too. There's no difference between these and the IBB duralumin, in my opinion. All right, it's a bit of a like a sales feature, in my opinion. I've got to say that. All right, but in my experience of using this one, I haven't noticed any difference whatsoever between this and the regular IBB duralumin. I think the IBB duralumin is the best one. You'll pay more for this one, of course. But yeah, this is the IBB duralumin. This is the one that we use for pretty much everything. And it's a great Mengane. It's still reinforced at the top with the stronger bars. So yeah, my recommendation would be sort of forget about the other ones and stick with the IBB duralumin, because I think that's the best. After, again, that's based on my experience, but I can't, you know, I've literally used every single type of Borga. I've been in this industry a long time, and I've I've used everything pretty much. I've got experience of it all. In terms of adding extra stuff into a custom men, are there any minuses to doing it besides some bulk and weight? Well, it's not really the way it's minuses. Of course, it's going to add a little bit of bulk and weight, but in a lot of cases, it's not really possible. It depends on what kind of men that you want, but it's not like if you're talking about stuff from Kendo Star, we use pretty much the maximum padding we can put in anyway. And there is a maximum that you can put in, because once you start to put too much in, the sewing machine's not going to pierce through the futon. All right. So I wouldn't, you know, there's not a lot you can really do in terms of into the men, in terms of adding extra stuff in, to be honest. At least with Kendo Star stuff. I mean, I know there's other ones out there from other companies that have hardly got anything in there, so maybe they could put some extra in. Hi Andy Sensei, how are you doing? I hope you're doing well. I'd like to ask the following questions. What are the requirements for Yondan? How should I prepare for Yondan grading? Thank you. Sure. The way to differentiate Yondan from the others up to now, up to Shodan to Sandan, is look, up to Sandan is technical ability. They're assessing your technical ability. How do you understand the Kendo techniques, and are you able to perform them? Are you able to understand the criteria of Yuko Datotsu, and are you able to achieve them? Yondan then starts to put those sort of practical elements into real world practice. So you have to start to demonstrate some understanding of the rationale behind the waza. So is there a reason for making the attacks that you're making? Now, of course, you still got to have technical proficiency, but are you attacking randomly, or is there some sort of reason behind the attacks that you're making? Is there some reason that you're doing them in the way that you are, or you're choosing those particular techniques? That's what's really important. Okay. So that's the main thing I'd say. Yeah. Do you have some sort of reason? If you're attacking Kote, why are you attacking Kote? Is there a reason for you to do that, or did you just decide to, off your own volition, just randomly? Yeah. It means there has to be some element of DI. Okay. Rationale. Since it's not really a question as much as a lament. Okay, I'm personally bummed about the loss of tsuba-zeriai and shiai probably forever. I found tsuba-zeriai exciting and challenging, but I get the reasoning. On a side note, I really enjoy Kendo feedback video. I see myself in them, often in them. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the loss of tsuba-zeriai. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really glad you asked this, because I think, and this isn't your fault, I think there's a massive misunderstanding in the application and interpretation of the rules in their current form. We haven't lost tsuba-zeriai. Tsuba-zeriai is still very much there. You just can't use it to waste time anymore. Now that the rules have, I was very skeptical of the changes to the rules in the beginning, but now that I fully understand them, and I've had them clarified to me directly from the source, by the way, they make sense, and I think they're very good. You can't, of course, tsuba-zeriai is still very much there. Yeah, it isn't the case that as soon as you come close to your opponent, you have to immediately separate. You have the time of one breath, which is, the guideline is 3 seconds. Okay, so you have 3 seconds of tsuba-zeriai to do an attack, and you can't fight the whole match from tsuba-zeriai. Well, 3 seconds is a long time in a shiai. All right, it's a long time. So it means that as soon as you get there, you have to be ready to make a strike, or prepare a strike, or separate. But I think tsuba-zeriai is still very much there. You just can't base your shiai around tsuba-zeriai anymore, which is, in fairness, and one of the reasons that I was a little bit unsure about it at first was that was my sort of style of shiai. Certainly towards the end of my career as a competitor, as a serious competitor anyway, was sort of quite centered around tsuba-zeriai, because it sounds bad, but like often I'd obviously compete in Europe whilst I lived in Japan, and frankly in Europe the level of tsuba-zeriai and hikiwaza is quite low. So I knew that if I was able to get good at that, I'd be able to win a lot of matches, and it worked. So, And I can't necessarily use that in the same way as I used to, and I can't look to fight most of the match from tsuba-zeriai. But I can still use my techniques. I can still use tsuba-zeriai in my shiai. So I want to reassure you that tsuba-zeriai is not gone. It's just slightly different, and it can't be used to abuse the rules anymore. I uploaded a video yesterday to the Kendo Show Early Access group. All right, it's in early access at the moment until Monday. It'll be coming on YouTube next week. All right, and it is talking exactly about this. There are some documents clarifying these points from the All Japan Kendo Federation, and they're not particularly easy to find. So I've brought them up, and the video is me talking about them, explaining them, going through them, and essentially talking about this very subject. So as soon as if you're in the early access group, it's free to join. If you're not, there's a link in the description. But go and look at that video. Go and watch that video, and I'll explain in much more detail in that video about how tsuba-zeriai works now. All right? And yeah, look out for that video next week on YouTube. Okay, last one, but it's a long one. Okay. 1, do you have any tips on how to clean the tare? My cat managed to find its way inside my burger bag when I was putting the rest of my burger to dry and peed inside. Oh, Christ. Hopefully a tenugui and a t-shirt took the brunt of it, but now my tare stinks, and it's not the usual sweat stink. Okay, yeah, you can wash the tare. You can completely submerge the tare in water. It's fine. So get a bucket or another container large enough to fit the tare in, fill it with water. I wouldn't recommend using soap if you can help it, but obviously if the cat's peed on it, you might need to do something. So if you want to drop a tiny bit of detergent in there, you could do that. Put the tare inside, let it soak for maybe 20 minutes, half an hour, right? Just totally submerge it. Take the zekken off. Totally submerge it. And use a cloth, not a brush, after it's soaked in the water to gently clean it. I'm hesitant to use the word scrub. I want you to be scrubbing on it like that. You're going to fade the dye on it, yeah? Damage the stitching. But give it a rub to try and get some of that out, all right? Then once you've done that, take it out of the water. You're going to need to leave it to dry probably for like a week, all right? Try and leave it somewhere warm where it's going to dry. But yeah, it's going to need time to dry. But yeah, if you do that, it should be okay. All right. 2, I just received my new. Okay, this is a long one. Wait a second. Okay, this is the second part. Right, let's have a look. I just received my new Vanguard Myrmidon Kote. I really like the softness of the palm leather. I hope it'll stay like this after some use. Yeah, it does. So the Atama and my previous pair were a bit short, so after chatting with someone on your team, we went the size up over my measurement, so now the fit of the Atama is great, but I also have very thin wrists, so I'm getting a lot of room inside the futon part. My wrists are, I can close a gap between the futon and still be able to fit my hand inside thin, okay. For the right hand, it's okay, because with my previous pair, I had to wear padding inside due to the Atama being short. The junction between the Atama and the futon was resting on the ligament between my thumb and the head of my radius, so painful when I got hit on the wrong angle. The rigidity from the extra protection might have played a role in making it more painful. The Kote was from the Halo set from Mikatsuki Budogo. That's an old set we used to do. So after the first training with them, I put a simple tennis wristband on and it was perfect. Okay, and I wrapped the tennis wristband inside a boxing hand wrap so that it doesn't move during training, and it's now part of my before training routine that I enjoy, so I'll most likely keep doing it even though it's not necessarily more. Okay, that's fine. As a bonus, it's also a great sweat stopper, so my Kote gets less humid at the end of keiko. Good. Good. You don't want stinky Kote and a tare, right? You can do the same thing with your Kote, by the way, when you need to wash those. But I digress. Just don't do it with the men. Don't submerge the men in water. That's really important. Anyway, but I digress, which leaves my question for the left hand. How tight is it okay to tie the Kote? Because I can completely close the gap and still fit my hand inside, but it looks like it deforms the futon. How much wiggle is okay with the Kote? On the right, thanks to the padding, I have almost no wiggle. I could tie them a bit more if I wanted to have the futon not moving at all, and the Kote is flexible enough for not being an issue. But on the left, I can wiggle quite a lot, and I'm still trying to find the tension I prefer for the humour. Thank you. It's personal preference. I recommend you don't have it like proper fit tight to your wrist anyway. You want a little bit of gap in there so that you can move your hands freely. and that little bit of air inside will also cushion some of the blows as well. Now, I know you don't need that so much on the left hand, but you don't need to worry too much. It doesn't have to be super skin tight on the left hand. There can be a gap in there and it can wiggle around. It won't be a problem. What you don't want it to do is like flare out and look like a sort of triangular shape. It wants to be a conical, like a cone, not a cone, not a conical shape. It wants to be a cylindrical shape. All right, so it wants to be sort of the futon wants to be straight, either side, as much as possible. But I don't think you need to worry about it all that much. It's fine, you know. It doesn't need to be super close fitting. Just try and find what's best for you. But obviously everybody's wrists are slightly different. So I wouldn't, you know, there's no this is right, this is wrong. Everybody's is a little bit different. So don't worry about it all that much. Okay. And there we are. We've reached the end. I know it's been a long episode today. Thank you for sticking with me until the end. It's been a great show. I hope you have a fantastic weekend of Kendo. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Help us get to more than 300 people probably starting Kendo. Let's get to maybe 500 people probably starting Kendo, or 1 million. Shop at KendoStar. Have a great weekend, guys. See you next week. Bye-bye.